Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone for arriving at our conference. I think when we first realized that we couldn't meet in person, I, for one, had a pretty bad attitude about having to do it on Zoom. I didn't think it would be very interesting, but now I think it's very interesting. And I really love the first three speeches very much. And I love the video of Malaysia and all the shots of the different teachers that have visited there. Um, I want to thank Hebong Temple very much for all the work they've done. I went there last year to help with the preparation for this conference when we didn't know about the virus. And I also went to Singapore because they were going to also be 50% a big part of this conference. And it was, there was so much genuine sincerity in both of those sanghas to want to share Zen Master Seung Sang's teaching, to want to just include everyone. That it was, I got to go to all the venues that we were going to visit and to check them out. And I mean, it was going to be something really, some great places. And anyway, here we are. And this flower concept, Zen Master Seung Sang, well, Mangang Sanim originally wrote that calligraphy after World War II. The whole world is a single flower. And you imagine what Korea had been through all this, for centuries really. Korea, because of being a peninsula perhaps and being very gentle, they never attacked anybody, but they were always getting invaded and having problems with China, you know, Japan, and, you know. So anyway, imagine after all of that suffering, Mangang Sanim writes, the whole world is a single flower. And what a beautiful thing that came out of his practice, out of his roots, his stem, his leaves, and he flowered into being a great bodhisattva. You know, when I first got interested in Zen, I was very interested in Zen when I was in my early 20s, and I luckily met Zen Master Seung Sang when I was 24. And even though I was young, I had already read these books, and I had ideas about kind of rooting myself on a cushion, having the teacher teach me. And I like discipline. I was raised in a military family, so I really like the idea of eat time eat, sit time sit, walk time walk, together action. And Zen Master Seung Sang was teaching all of that, and we had that organization. But it was like a little bit more than I had signed up for, because right away, you know, we're hosting these guests for the Dharma talks, and I was living at the Zen Center, and he, you know, I was making, like, I used to make a lot of chapatis, like cookies and chapatis to give to the guests, and I was cleaning up the kitchen and making the tea. I was a housemaster then. And then one day he came into the kitchen while the guests were out there with him at the table where they were having the tea and cookies. And he came in and kind of a little bit angry. He said, you got to come out and talk to the guests. And I went, I'm doing the dishes. And he said, we can do that later. You're the host. I went, I'm the host. I don't want to be the host. I want to just do the dishes. I don't like people. I was shy, really. It's not like I didn't like people. I was already a nurse. I love people, but I'm shy. I don't want to be a host. I want to be a Zen student. I want to do the dishes, you know. No, get out there, you know. And then so I went out begrudgingly, and then he kind of pulls on my sleeve and said, smile. You have to smile. And I'm like, he said, that makes people feel good when you smile. And he said, you got to clean up this is not all in one night. And then he told me to, you know, cut my hair, and it was really scraggly. It was very long and not dirty, but I didn't comb it very much, so it didn't look so great. And he said, you've got to get better clothes. And I said, what? Why do I need good clothes? I said, that's all name and form. I don't want good clothes. He said, for other people. You want the good clothes for other people, not about you. And so that was my first huge lesson from him. I mean, the big lessons about only go straight, don't know, what is this, what am I, wonderful and huge and very helpful in my everyday life. But these other things about really, how are you going to bloom? How are you going to be Kwanseum Bosol? He said, do you think Kwanseum Bosol wore those beautiful clothes for him or herself? That was for other people. All that jewelry, all the draping, everybody feels good when someone's smiling and they're neat and clean and they're dressed nicely. He had to, like, I was such a slob. I was just I'm still am, but I'm a little bit better than I was. To clean up my act, not for me, to realize that. Then he was talking about my parents. He said, your parents eat meat, right? Because I wasn't, at that time, I was vegan. I didn't eat eggs or cheese, So I go to their house. It was very unpleasant for them because at least they could give me an omelet if I was a vegetarian. No, I don't eat cheese. I don't eat eggs, and anyway, he said, you go over to your parents' house, and if they give you chicken, you eat your chicken. I said, I haven't eaten chicken in 4 years. You haven't eaten chicken? It's not about you. It's about how can you make a pleasant visit with your parents? How can you honor them, respect them, show them your love? So that was drilling that in. Not what I expected from a Zen master at all. I wanted to pass those koans and learn how to keep my mind still and have an organized home that I lived in. And it was a challenge. He was a person who stretched things out. So quite often is you have to believe in yourself. And, I thought we're supposed to have no self. Believe in yourself. And what are you? And so again, that's such a beautiful thing to go in and practice. And thoughts come up, our doubts come up, our fears come up, our ideas come up, our likes, our dislikes come up. Just to learn to say, well, who's feeling fearful? What are you? Who thought that? What is this? And to begin, as Richard said, to listen. So listen to yourself also. Listen to your questions. Listen to your doubts, your fears. What is this? So you become the mother of your fears. Your great mind, your wide mind, listens to anything that might be needing to digest. And that when you start digesting and trusting the listening aspect of our practice, you begin to believe in that process, which is yourself. That's yourself. Your true self is listening and paying attention and questioning. And that's what we teach. This whole koan system that we use, what's the first thing we teach is primary point, before thinking. So can you trust that? Can you trust that you can hear the question of the koan? Just that mind not knowing. And from there, because you've been listening to yourself, from the bottom up, from your gut, comes the intuitive answer. It might take 6 months or 2 years or a week. It doesn't matter. But if you listen and just come from not knowing, the truth appears. So that's pretty fantastic. So when we're learning about ourselves and listening and paying attention, we don't just see our fears and our doubts. We see our potential. We see what we are leaning towards. What am I? What am I? I always wanted to be a nurse. Since I was a little kid, like 5 years old, I want to be a nurse. And so I stuck with that. I always wanted to be a nurse. It's not so great. I mean, it's not like the most famous profession in the world, but that's what I was. I was a nurse. And so then to see that the Zen practice totally integrated into the nursing, because I leaned towards that, that's what I wanted to do well. Then, of course, as a nurse, I was listening, paying attention. What is this? It doesn't matter what you're doing, what profession you have. If you're listening, leaning into your profession, wanting to do that, then there's peace, there's harmony, there's the wars could stop. The wars could stop. I noticed, like with this pandemic, that we haven't, the United States isn't rattling its swords as much. I mean, you don't hear that much. I don't know what's going on out there. I really don't. They only tell you so much, but it feels like people are just trying to survive. You know, no, well, we're not going to do the wars right now. We're too busy trying to survive. Who knows? It's just the human being is a number one, as Soeng always said, bad animal. It's too confusing. And that's why I think all of us who are listening today, who are attending this thing, want to get to know what's going on and what am I. I just finished with another wonderful teaching that Zen Master Soeng. I'm talking about him particularly because this is August is when we usually have a Founders Day ceremony, and we celebrate the gift that he gave us for starting this school. And so I wanted to talk about stories about him today. We were listening to a Dharma talk with him at the Providence Zen Center it was in the 80s. And there was a lot of saber rattling in Russia and the United States. It was called the Cold War. And it was a lot of fear about the atomic energy and atomic bombs, and talk about it. I mean, I read yesterday in the paper that North Korea has atomic submarines now or something. They might come to the United States, you know. It's always something, you know, always something. So at this time, the atomic bomb was going to come. Soeng said, somebody asked him, well, what can we do about these atomic bombs? And he said, oh, well, I have a great idea. He said, see, we were in Cumberland, Rhode Island, and it's about 15 miles away from Providence, you know. And he said, if the bomb hits Providence, we'll just have time to run out to the pasture and say, hello, just greet the bomb. He said, because you are the bomb. You made that bomb. You made everything, your anger, your desire, your ignorance, your tethering to your idea of self and other. He said, so greet it. Greet your demons, greet your punishment, whatever you want to call it. Don't be afraid. Say hello to it. And so, as I was saying earlier, when we're meditating, let's listen to ourselves too. Listen to, oh, like, I don't know if I can do this. Then you ask yourself, who doesn't know they can do this? What are you? And that is a brilliant question, because then the mind is looking at the mind. There's this, don't know. So again, thank you so much, you know, the Malaysian Sangha for hosting this. And thank you all for coming. And as everybody else has said, I hope we can get physically together again, but this is better than nothing. So thank you.